Mid-July 2019, a phone rings. The man who picks it up is 6'4" and 260 pounds. He is 48 years old. He is covered in tattoos, and he has been a Federal Bureau of Investigation agent for 21 years. His name is Scott Payne. Tonight, it isn't. Tonight, he is White Warrior 88, an aging biker, a shot caller, a former skinhead out of South Carolina. He has shaved 4 years off his age because he has learned that most members of the organization he is trying to join are between 18 and 25 years old. The interview is scheduled for 30 minutes. It runs an hour. The voice on the other end of the line wants to know about his ethnicity, his history, what he can bring to the table. Scott Payne passes, and he will not find out for months who was actually asking the questions. The voice belonged to a man from New Jersey named Rinaldo Nazzaro. He had once worked for the United States government. He was speaking from an apartment in Saint Petersburg, Russia. And he was the founder of the neo-Nazi paramilitary organization that Scott Payne had just been admitted to. An organization called the Base. 2 men, 1 telephone line, neither one of them knowing who he had. Over the next 6 months, one of them would carry a recording device into a training camp in the woods of North Georgia. He would sit in a pickup truck while a 19-year-old explained how to burn down a house with 2 bodies inside it. And he would put 6 men into federal and state prison. He is retired now. He has written a book about it. The other man has never been charged with a crime. He is still in Saint Petersburg. And in February of 2026, the organization he built claimed responsibility for a car bombing in Ukraine. So this is not a story about how the FBI destroyed a neo-Nazi terror cell. It is a story about how that operation succeeded completely and failed completely. And the reason is the same reason. Start with the man. Because on paper, Scott Payne should never have been chosen. He does not speak a second language. He has no elite degree. He grew up in Greenville, South Carolina, played football, and worked as a bar bouncer. He spent 5 years at the county sheriff's office, 3 of them in a patrol uniform, before joining the Bureau in 1998. He would serve for nearly 23 years. What he had instead of credentials was this. He did not have to pretend to be a large, loud, hard-drinking Southern man who rode a Harley-Davidson and knew how to fight. In his own words, "What I do isn't acting. Acting will get you killed. I'm just out here being darker shades of me." He was certified as an FBI undercover agent in 2002 at the Academy in Quantico, Virginia. He infiltrated the Outlaws Motorcycle Club in Massachusetts. He was blindfolded, put on his knees in an Alabama field, and sworn into the Ku Klux Klan. Somewhere along the way, people started calling him the Hillbilly Donnie Brasco, and he described his profession in a single sentence that nobody in law enforcement likes to hear said out loud. You are building relationships that you're going to betray. Now, here is what happens after that phone call, and here is why you should keep watching. 1. 2 weeks later, in a gravel lot outside Rome, Georgia, a young man will point a handheld electronic wand at Scott Payne's pickup truck, sweeping it for surveillance devices. There is a tracking device on that truck. The wand will start beeping. 2. 5 months after that, the leader of the Georgia cell will invite Payne on a camping trip. There is no camping trip. Inside this group, those 2 words mean something else entirely. And by the time Payne understands what, he is one of 4 men assigned to break into a house in Bartow County, Georgia, and shoot the married couple who live there. 3. And when it is all over, when the arrests are made, the sentence is handed down, and the newspapers call the group dismantled, the prosecution will reach 6 men, and then it will stop, precisely and permanently 1 phone call short. Because the organization Rinaldo Nazzaro built was designed, deliberately, to leave no evidence behind. No names, no phones, no headquarters, no hierarchy. Nothing a forensic laboratory could ever recover, which is why the FBI eventually stopped looking for a trace and put 1 inside instead. The Ku Klux Klan is a 19th century organization. It has a telephone hotline. It has a written constitution and bylaws and an entrance exam. It holds rallies with vendors and country music. It leaves paperwork. What replaced it does not. In the summer of 2018, Rinaldo Nazzaro, using the names Norman Spear and Roman Wolf, founded a network called The Base. An FBI affidavit would later describe its purpose in a single sentence: to accelerate the downfall of the United States government, to incite a race war, and to establish a white ethno-state. Accelerate. That one word is the entire ideology. Accelerationism is not the belief that a society is collapsing. It is the belief that it should collapse faster, and that the way to get there is violence severe enough to break a country's nerves. Its founding text is a collection of essays called Siege by the American neo-Nazi James Mason. Its followers call the coming collapse the Boogaloo, and its organizing doctrine has a name: leaderless resistance. Here is what that means in practice. Members never use their real names. Vetting happens over encrypted channels. The group organizes into small regional cells that operate independently, so that when one of them commits a crime, the others, and the leadership, keep plausible deniability. Training happens in fields, at night, 3 states away from anyone's home. They call these hate camps. There is no membership list to seize, no headquarters to raid, no hierarchy to flip, no wire to tap. It is a criminal organization built as a forensic vacuum. And the man who built it was not some backwoods ideologue. Rinaldo Nazaro is from New Jersey. Before he founded the base, he worked for the United States government, reportedly as an intelligence analyst, and later as a Pentagon contractor. The Department of Homeland Security has confirmed he was employed there between 2004 and 2006. He has also claimed special operations experience. When Vice News went looking, the Pentagon reportedly could not locate any records of him at all. In July of 2018, the same month the base was founded, an apartment was purchased in Saint Petersburg, Russia, in his wife's name. He has directed the organization from Russia ever since. He has appeared on Russian state television. He has been photographed wearing a t-shirt with the face of Vladimir Putin on it. So consider the Bureau's problem in the spring of 2019. A paramilitary network run from a foreign jurisdiction with no extradition treaty, recruiting online, organizing in cells, communicating in cipher, training for a race war in the American woods. Nothing to seize, nothing to intercept, no trace. To get a trace, somebody has to be one. The FBI's undercover school runs for 2 weeks, with no days off. It is built around sleep deprivation and relentless role play. Roughly half of the agents admitted do not finish. Payne finished. Then he stayed on to teach, running scenarios in front of a rotating audience of senior undercover agents who were quietly shopping for talent. That is how his name got out. His first great case was a motorcycle club. Operation Roadkill was an FBI Boston investigation into the Massachusetts chapters of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club, the oldest outlaw biker club in the world, and the principal rival of the Hells Angels. Payne went in as Scott Calloway, a Harley-riding, whiskey-drinking site survey specialist from Texas, with connections to a stolen vehicle ring. And here, a correction to almost every version of this story you may have heard. Scott Payne was never patched in. He was an associate of the Outlaws, not a member. Getting a federal agent patched into a 1%er club almost never happens. For roughly 2 years, he drank with them, rode with them, ran jobs with them. It ended with a fabricated narcotics deal, guarded by outlaws who were paid $15,000 for the security detail, and a takedown in 2007 that sent one member to federal prison for 21 years. But we are not here for the case. We are here for the cause. Before the deal, they took Payne down into a basement and ordered him to strip. They were looking for a wire. He was wearing one, not taped to his chest, concealed inside his clothing, and one of the men picked that clothing up and ran his fingers through it. Slowly. Payne says he let out a sigh. Audible. Involuntary. He did not know that he was doing it. The man looked directly at the recording device and missed it. And this is the part that matters for everything that comes next. The men Scott Payne betrayed became his friends. He has said, on the record, that he never bonded more closely with anyone in his career than with one of those outlaws. Another told him, sincerely, that he was one of only 2 or 3 people he would take a bullet for. On the morning of the arrests, that man telephoned him. To warn him, Payne says the last words they ever spoke to each other were, "I love you, brother." 45 minutes later, a SWAT team hit his house. 10 years on came the Klan. He found the United Klans of America through a telephone hotline. he studied for their written entrance exam, and on the night of the 21st of April, 2017, blindfolded and on his knees in an Alabama field, he was sworn in. He says he only worked out what had happened as he walked back to his truck. That case went nowhere much, and by then Payne and the Bureau had both noticed the same thing. In his words, "In the FBI, we started encountering more violent type extremism. Not the KKK types. We're talking advanced neo-Nazism. The Klan left paperwork, the base left nothing. It began with a Facebook account that nobody wanted. Payne's task was to build a plausible extremist, so he posted racist material and waited to be banned. Nothing happened. A colleague pointed out the obvious. The account had no friends. He added a few. He was suspended within hours. Then Gab, and forums with names like Whites Only. Credentials accumulated. On the 15th of July 2019, he sent an email. The reply arrived the next day. A form, name, age, sex, race, location, military experience, special training, prior affiliations. Then a week of correspondence with a stranger on an encrypted email account. Then the phone call. He passed. They told him his nearest cell was in North Georgia. The 2nd of August, 2019, a gravel lot outside Rome, Georgia. They tell him to put his phone into airplane mode. Then one of them produces a handheld wand. Lights across the housing, the shape of a Geiger counter. He sweeps it over Payne's body. Clean. Then he starts on the truck. Behind the rear driver's side wheel, Payne's case team has fixed a tracking device. It is the only thing connecting him to backup, and it is transmitting. The wand begins to beep. Faster, the closer it gets. What saves Scott Payne is luck and geometry. One of the young men suggests that the device is picking up the overhead power lines. He walks toward them. It goes off again. Good enough. They tell Payne to follow them to a second location. On the drive, he calls his case team, and he tells them to kill the tracker. They resist. If we shut it down, we may never get it back, and then we have lost you. His answer, by his account, whatever they are carrying is picking it up. If you don't shut it off, this is going to be a very short undercover. The second location is an abandoned concrete plant. They sweep him again. He passes. Now look at who Scott Payne is standing among. Luke Austin Lane. Online, he is TMB, the militant Buddhist. He is the leader of the cell. He is 21 years old. The training camp is his family's 100-acre property in Silver Creek, Georgia. Jacob Catterley. Online, Pestilence, 19 years old. Michael Helterbrand. Online, Helter Skelter, 25. And their new recruit, a 48-year-old federal agent whose code name inside the base is Pale Horse. The men preparing to bring about the collapse of the United States of America average 22 years old. Halloween weekend, 2019. The base holds a hate camp on the Silver Creek property. Men arrive from Texas, Alabama, Michigan, and Delaware. 3 days of hand-to-hand combat, weapons drills, and moving and shooting exercises. The stated purpose, according to the FBI affidavit, is preparation for the Boogaloo. At a bonfire, they burn American flags and Bibles. And on Halloween night, according to prosecutors in Floyd County, Georgia, several of them steal an animal from a neighboring farm and kill it in a ritual. They drink its blood. They pass around a sheet of LSD. Now here's a detail that almost nobody reports. And it tells you exactly how thin the record on this group really is. Prosecutors in Floyd County called the animal a ram. Federal prosecutors called it a goat. Two arms of the same government, prosecuting the same night, could not agree on the species. The only reason we know anything at all about what happened in those woods is that one man was standing in the circle wearing a recording device. Payne declined to drink. He says he pushed his fingers into the blood and sucked them clean instead. Everything else, he recorded. 6 weeks later, the trace recorded something worse. On the 6th of December, 2019, Luke Lane invited the undercover agent on a camping trip. There was no camping trip. Lane had created a chat room by that name. Inside the base, camping trip meant killing someone. The targets were a married couple living in Bartow County, Georgia. Lane believed they were high-ranking members of an anti-fascist organization. Atlanta anti-fascists said the couple were not members. Local reporting found the man had never publicized any activism at all. They had simply been named on a white nationalist blog. They were, almost certainly, the wrong people, which was irrelevant. The FBI affidavit records Lane's reasoning plainly. Killing them would send a message that exposing white supremacists would not go unpunished. On the 14th of December, Lane, Catterley, and the undercover agent drove to the couple's home to scout it. Lane proposed breaching the front door with a sledgehammer and then killing them both with revolvers. Catterley proposed burning the house down afterwards. Michael Helterbrand, brought in later, told them, "This is what I've been fantasizing about for about 2 years now. And according to prosecutors, I have no problem killing a commie kid." Payne says Helterbrand asked politely whether he might be the one to pull the trigger. He phrased it as wanting to pop his cherry. And now listen to how carefully these men plan to leave no trace. Every phone and digital device left behind. Stolen license plates on the vehicle. Trouser legs taped to their boots. Gloves taped to their sleeves. Vaseline smeared across their eyebrows and facial hair, so that no hair could fall. A pay-by-the-hour motel room afterwards. To scrub themselves down, Lane had read somewhere that first-time killers sometimes lose control of their bowels. He suggested they all wear adult diapers. Payne declined, on the grounds that he had killed a man before. 4 men. Obsessing over eyebrow hair and bowel control, engineering a murder scene with no biological evidence in it whatsoever. And they had invited the evidence into the car with them. And then the Bureau's problem doubled, because while Payne was sitting in that car in Georgia, a second base cell in Maryland and Delaware was planning something else entirely. Patrick Matthews, a former Canadian Army reservist who had crossed illegally into the United States after an undercover newspaper reporter exposed him as a neo-Nazi. Brian Lemley Jr., a United States Army veteran of the Iraq War. Federal surveillance inside their apartment recorded them discussing derailing trains, sabotaging infrastructure, poisoning water supplies, and assassinating a Virginia lawmaker. And it recorded a plan for the 20th of January 2020. A Second Amendment rally at the Virginia State Capitol in Richmond. Thousands of armed civilians, militia members, police, and counter-protesters in one square. The idea, as Payne describes it, was simple. Fire a few rounds into the crowd. Nobody knows who shot at whom. Everybody starts shooting. That is how you start a race war. So the FBI now had 2 clocks. Richmond on the 20th of January. Bartow County on the 22nd of February, the date the Georgia cell had set for the murders. And there was no version of events in which Pale Horse survived. Take down Richmond, and Georgia knows it has been infiltrated. Wait, and Richmond happens. On the morning of the 15th of January 2020, Scott Payne picked up Luke Lane in Rome, Georgia, and drove him toward lunch. He intended to fake a mechanical fault. He says the truck obliged him by making a genuinely alarming noise. He pulled up against a fence and got out to check the engine. A car stopped alongside. Agents staging a chance encounter. And while Lane was watching that conversation, an armored vehicle came over the hill behind him. No shots were fired. The next day, SWAT teams took Matthews and Lemley in Delaware. 4 days before Richmond. Now the sentences, which almost every popular account of this case gets wrong. Floyd County Superior Court, Judge John Niedrock. The 19th of November, 2021. Luke Austin Lane. 2 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, gang activity, and contraband charges for a shank found in his jail cell. 30 years. 13 to serve. Jacob Caterly, 19 years old at the time of the plot. Conspiracy to commit arson, gang activity, and theft of livestock, 25 years. 6 to serve under Georgia's First Offender Act. Those 2 figures are reported almost everywhere in reverse. Lane received the longer sentence. Michael Helterbrand, 20 years. While awaiting trial, he joined a violent prison gang and took part in the assault of another inmate. He has the words, "Pale Face," tattooed across his forehead. Pale Face. Pale Horse. In federal court, Judge Theodore Chuang sentenced Matthews and Lemley to 9 years each, with a terrorism enhancement. Prosecutors had asked for 25 years. Defense counsel had asked for 33 months. From the bench, the judge rejected the idea that this had been merely talk among friends. A sixth man, William Bilbrough, got 5 years for helping Matthews enter the country. 6 months undercover, 6 convictions. The longest sentence, 13 years. And Rinaldo Nazzaro, who had spent an hour on the telephone personally vetting the agent who dismantled 2 of his cells, was never charged with anything at all. Not because the evidence was weak, because leaderless resistance means the leader leaves no trace. There is one more thing in the court record, and it deserves to be said out loud, because almost nobody says it. At Luke Lane's sentencing, his attorney told the court that the FBI undercover agent had been the driving force behind the murder plot. In Maryland, lawyers for Matthews and Lemley argued that an undercover agent who visited their apartment had pressured 2 damaged military veterans into planning violence at the Virginia rally. Both judges rejected it, but notice what never happened. All 6 men pleaded guilty. Not one of those claims was ever tested in front of a jury. Scott Payne never took the witness stand, so sit with the problem the FBI actually solved. If an organization leaves no forensic trace, no wire to tap, no scene to process, no leader to indict, then your only method of detection is to put a human being inside it and let him become the evidence. And the instant you do that, you have contaminated the scene. Permanently. The recording exists because the agent was there. The car drove to Bartow County with an FBI agent sitting in it. What cuts against the defense is the record itself. Helterbrand had been fantasizing about it for 2 years. Lane chose the targets. After Lane's arrest, another base member said on a recorded call that he could see Lane actually trying to carry something like that out. What cuts for the defense is only this: we will never know. Because Payne was never cross-examined, and the men who could have contested his account are the men who confessed. Scott Payne retired in June of 2021 after nearly 23 years. The base went quiet. It did not stay quiet. Since 2024, according to The Guardian and the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, Nazzaro has been recruiting a new American leader on a monthly salary. In 2025, the group solicited cryptocurrency to fund a national training exercise on American soil and published photographs of armed members in 3 separate regions of the country. Nazzaro's stated ambition, in his own words, is to accomplish something similar to what Al-Qaeda and Islamic State accomplished in Syria. The base is a designated terrorist organization in Canada, Britain, Australia, New Zealand, and the European Union. It is not designated in the United States. The United States has no legal mechanism to designate a domestic organization as terrorist. And on the 6th of February 2026, a vehicle exploded in Odesa, Ukraine, killing a soldier. Authorities treated it as a terrorist attack. Later that month, the base's Ukrainian branch claimed responsibility for it. The claim is theirs. Investigators have not publicly confirmed it. Analysts note indicators of Russian state tolerance and no proof of sponsorship. 6 months undercover bought a country 2 shattered cells, 6 convictions, and a gun rally in Richmond, Virginia that passed without a single shot fired. It did not buy the man on the other end of that telephone. It was never going to, because the thing he built was designed to leave nothing behind. No name, no scene, no residue, nothing a laboratory could ever recover. For 6 months, in the woods of North Georgia, it left one trace anyway. A man agreed to be it. Every case leaves a trace. If you want more of them, cases where the evidence is thinner than the story, subscribe to Latent Trace.